Alright, because I'm not in class with you today, I have this video for you so that you can complete your assignment. This will be a grade, and I'm going to work through the problems with you. And in order to get the credit for the grade, I need to make sure that you write down everything that I write down. So make sure you work out all the steps. If you want to do it on your own, and as long as you show your work, that's fine. But the work has to be shown, so you can't just circle an answer. So be sure that you show how you got each answer. So let's take a look at number one. It says a triangular prism and its dimensions are shown in the diagram. What is the lateral surface area of the triangular prism in square centimeters? So first of all, I think the first thing that we need to recognize is that we're looking for the lateral surface area. And when we have our formula, pH plus 2b, the lateral surface area is just the pH. That's our LA. This whole thing is equal to our SA, which is our total surface area. So with that being said, all we need to do is just find our perimeter of our base, and that's what P stands for, and then the height. So keep in mind, and I'm just going to refresh your memory, P stands for the perimeter of the base, and then you have H is the height, and that's going to be the distance between the two bases. And then your big B is the area of the base. So keep those things in mind as you do all these problems, because all these problems that we're going to do today are going to be either volume or they're going to be surface area. So now that I know that, I want to go ahead and find my perimeter, and my perimeter is just going to be the side of a triangle plus the side of a triangle plus the side of the triangle. So let me go ahead and I'm going to highlight those to make them stand out. So here's my base right here, and I got side, side, side. I'm going to shade this in just a little bit. That's one base. That's my second base. And remember, I do expect you to shade in the bases before you attempt to answer these questions. Now notice this back side says it's 5, right? So that's the right side. In other words, this side of the triangle right here is also 5. I'll put the 5 right there. This side's 5 and this side's 6. So from my perimeter, I could say 5 plus 5 plus 6. The next thing I need to do is put my height. So I'm looking for that H. And the height is the distance between my two bases, which I've just shaded. And the distance between base to base is 8 centimeters. So that's times 8. And once I got that set up, that's all I need to do, because I'm only looking for the lateral surface area. So let's go ahead and put that into our calculator. Now on the calculator, you will notice that this calculator looks a little bit different. It is very similar to what we have, but I'm going to be using this one from now on, because I had to change the program that I had on my computer here because the trial was up on that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in our perimeter. Alright, we're going to put our parenthesis, and then we're going to go ahead and put in our measurements. We have 5 plus 5 plus 6. That's our three sides, and I'm going to go ahead and close my parenthesis. And then I'm going to put another parenthesis, and I'm going to go ahead and put my height, which is the distance between the two bases. Close my parenthesis, and then I'm just going to hit enter. And that gives me 128. So that's going to be our answer, is 128 centimeters squared. So let's go back and check our answer choices. So I'm going to go ahead and put this equals 128 centimeters squared. So our best answer choice and the correct one is G. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 2. And once again, make sure you got all these notes written down, because part of this review to get you prepared for your unit test, which you're taking this Thursday and Friday, you'll be taking the unit test, and you'll be going over these same types of questions. Just make sure you're writing this stuff down and you're memorizing it, you're practicing it. So let's go ahead and go up to number 2. Number 2 says a ball shaped like a sphere has a radius of 2.7 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to underline sphere. That's a key word. That's how it's shaped. It has a radius, so we're going to box of 2.7 centimeters. So we're going to box it, underline radius. Which measurement is closest to the volume, underline volume, of the ball in cubic centimeters. So when we're talking about a ball, and we're talking about a sphere, remember, we're going to be using a different formula than what we use for area, but it's going to be somewhat similar, right? We're still using the radius. So let's go ahead and we can go to our chart on star, and we can look at our formula for a sphere. And that formula is, for a sphere, we have V is equal to 4/3 times pi r cubed. That means to the power of 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just plug in our number. And on this one is real straightforward. The only thing that we need to plug in for is r. And it tells us right here r is 2.7 centimeters. So let's go ahead and rewrite that. We have 4/3 times pi times 2.7 cubed. And let's go ahead and put that in our calculator and see what we come up with. Alright, in our calculator, the way we can do that, there's a couple different ways. I'm going to use parentheses, and then I'm going to go ahead and put 4 divided by 3. I'm leaving mine like this and putting it in parentheses, but on your calculator, right, you can hit Control Divide and use the fraction bar if you want. But if you don't want to use the fraction bar, you're welcome to do it the way that I'm doing it. And just put parentheses, 4 divided by 3, close parentheses. It's the same thing, that's 4/3. And then we're going to go ahead and put pi. So we're going to put our pi symbol. And after we put our pi symbol, we're going to put another set of parentheses. And put 2.7, which is the measure of our radius. Close parenthesis. And then hit your caret key, that up arrow. And then we're going to hit to the power of 3. And once we do that, we'll hit enter, and that gives us our volume, which is 82.4 if we round it to the nearest tenths. So let's go ahead and take that and document that on our paper. Alright, so we're going to put 82.4 centimeters, and it's going to be cubed, because remember, when we're dealing with volume, it's not squared, it's cube units, because we're talking about how much fits inside. So when we look at that, the closest answer to 82.4 centimeters cubed is D, and D is the correct answer. Go ahead and circle that. Make sure you have all the notes documented, and let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Alright, for this shape, for our cylinder, we're going to be using the formula V is equal to big B times H, because it says one equation for calculating the volume of a cylinder is V equals BH. And that's what we have there. That's our formula, where B represents the area of the base of the cylinder, which expression can be used to find the value of B in square centimeters for the cylinder. Okay, so on this one, we're not even having to solve for the entire volume. It just wants us to determine which expression can be used to find the value of B. Okay, well, if I have V equals big B times H, and I want to use my big B, remember that one is going to be, we're going to look at our shape, and let's go and shade that in real quick before we get past that. The shape of our base, if you look at it, is a circle. So in other words, to find the area of a circle, which will be the area of our base, we will use the formula pi r squared. Furthermore, it tells us what the radius is. It says right here the radius is 12.1 centimeters. So we can go ahead and plug that in. So it's going to be pi times 12.1 squared. And that's going to be our big B. So big B is equal to pi times 12.1 squared. Then you just need to come over, look at your answer choices, and see which one matches up. And if you look, we can see it right here at A. It says pi times 12.1 squared. That is the correct answer. Let's go ahead and move on to number 4. Alright, on number 4, it says a storage container for oil is in the shape of a cylinder. So let's go ahead and underline cylinder, because that's a key word. And it says with a diameter, underline diameter, of 10 feet. So let's go ahead and box that. And a height, underline height, of 17 feet. Which measurement is the closest to the volume, underline volume, of the storage container in cubic feet? So now we're trying to find volume of a cylinder. We are going to be using our formula, V is equal to big B times H. But before we start that, I think what we need to do is draw a picture. Because remember, when we were doing these previously, we said step 1 was to read the question, underline keywords, and box any numbers, variables, or equations. And then our second step is to draw the image. So it says it's a cylinder, so let's draw a cylinder real quick. And then it says it had a diameter of 10 feet. So remember, a diameter goes all the way across. So we're going to draw it all the way across, and that's 10. And then it had a height of 17. So this height right here is 17. Now it wants us to tell the volume. So determine what it is and solve for it. When we're looking at this, you ought to be thinking, well, it gave me the diameter, but we really just need half of that. We just need half of it. So for instance, we just need this part. So we can look at that and go, okay, well, 10 divided in half is the same thing as dividing it by 2. And that gives me 5. So 5 is going to be my radius, and that's what I'm going to need in order to find big B, the area of the base. Now, furthermore, I can go ahead and say, well, I know the area of my base is going to be pi r squared will be my formula, because my bases are circles, and pi r squared is how you find the area of a circle. So let's go ahead and let's plug that in. So what we're going to have is we're going to have pi r squared times h, which is our height. So if we go ahead and plug in our numbers for that, I'll have pi times 5 squared, and I'm just going to put this in parentheses, times my h, which is 17. They tell us the height is 17. And now we just need to put that in our calculator and get a final answer. So let's go over to our calculator and see what that looks like. Alright, so on the calculator, what we have here is I'm going to go ahead and put my parenthesis, and then I'm going to put my pi symbol, and then I'm going to put 5 squared. I'm going to close my parenthesis, and then put another parenthesis, and I'm going to put my height, 17. Now, when I put the parentheses in, it's the same thing as, like, whenever a parenthesis is set up against a parenthesis, it's going to multiply. So just keep in mind, I don't have to put a multiplication symbol in between the pi 5 squared and a 17, because I have them in those parentheses. So then I'm going to hit enter, and it gives me 1335.2. So let's go ahead and document that real quick on our answer sheet. Alright, so we got 1335.2, and it's in feet, so we got feet cubed. And the closest answer to that, notice that they rounded it up to the ones place, is 1335 feet cubed. So the answer is G. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 5. Alright, in problem number 5, it says a rectangular prism and its dimensions are shown in a diagram. What is the total surface area of this rectangular prism in square inches? And record your answer and fill in the bubbles on your answer document. On this one, we're just going to write in the answer. But if this were a star question, and it was pulled off a previous year's star test, you would have bubbled it in. So the first step that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to shade in our base. Now remember, the base is going to be the side that it sits on. So let's go ahead and shade it in. And then I'm going to shade in the top. So when you're looking at it, just imagine this was sitting on your desk and you want to think, well, what side was it sitting on? The other sides that are not included, right, is your lateral surface area that runs around. But this one, notice it didn't say lateral surface area, it said total surface area. So we're going to neglect the lateral surface area, and we're just going to focus on the total surface area. And so let's go ahead and look at our formula. It's pH plus 2b. And I wrote it over here, but let's see. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down and spread it out so we can fit everything underneath it. And remember, when we get the perimeter, we want the perimeter of the base. So when I'm looking at the base, I'm looking at this bottom part that I shaded in green, or this top one. So I notice I wrote some of my measurements over here to show the 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. If I go all the way around this one's 8.2. So this other side over here is also 8.2. This side is 3.4, so this side over here is also 3.4. So remember, we want the distance around, I'm going to draw little arrows, around this box. So walking all the way around it. So we're going to go ahead and count those up. So I have 8.2, that's this first one. So 8.2 plus 3.4 plus this other 8.2 plus this other 3.4. And that's as if we walked all the way around this box. We got all 4 measurements. Now we want to multiply that to the height, which is the distance between our two bases. So that's the distance between this base and this base. So notice that I got 2 written over here, and that's because this backside also shows that it's 2. So that's my height. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that for you. So these are the distance between my 2 bases right here and right here. So let's go and write that in. So we have multiplied times 2 plus 2 times the area of the base. So the area of the base we would get by multiplying our length, the long end of the box on our base, or the long side of the rectangle, I guess you could say, and then the short side, which is our width. So I'm going to have 8.2 times 3.4. I guess I could just put that as a point there, so you see that's multiplication. So now that I got that all set up, I have my perimeter, which is 8.2 plus 3.4 plus 8.2 plus 3.4. That's my P, times my H, which is 2, the height between my 2 bases, or distance between my 2 bases. And then I have my 2, which comes down right here. And then I have my big B, which is the area of the base, this bottom rectangle. So let's go ahead and put that in our calculator and see what we come up with. Alright, so let's go ahead and put a parenthesis. And I'm going to go ahead and put in each part 8.2 plus 3.4 plus 8.2 plus 3.4, close parenthesis. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my next parenthesis and put in a 2, close it. And then I'm going to put plus 2, put another parenthesis because I want to multiply 2 to what's inside of the parenthesis, which is my area of my base, which is 8.2 times 3.4, and then close parenthesis. So I got that all in there now. I'm going to hit enter, and it gives me 102.2. Now on the answer it actually said be sure to make sure you use the correct place value, and so on this one what I'm going to tell you is I want you to round it to the nearest tenth, which means because the hundredths place says 6, we would round that tenths place, which is 0.1, up to 0.2. So this is 102.2. So let's document that. Alright, so we'll put equals 102.2, and that's going to be inches squared. So go ahead and box that, and there's your answer for number 5. Alright, let's go ahead and move up and go to the next question. I'm going to look at number 6. It says a party hat is shaped like a cone. The dimensions of the party hat are shown in the diagram. Which measurement is closest to the volume of the party hat in cubic inches? So we have this party hat here, and remember when we're thinking about cones, whenever I did the demonstration, we had a cylinder, right? And we said that one cylinder is equal to 3 cones. Because remember, it took 3 cones to fill up the cylinder, and we used rice to fill it up. So since it takes 3 cones to equal 1 cylinder, our formula for a cone is very similar to the cylinder, but instead of V equals big B times H, it's V equals 1/3 big B times H. Now if you forgot that, you don't have to worry. You'll have this formula on your star chart. But I'm just reminding you that it's 1/3 because each one of these is worth 1/3. If you add them all 3 together, they equal 3/3, which is 1 whole cylinder. So let's go ahead and let's do the math here. Notice that they give us the diameter, right? It says it's 6 inches. And I want you to always think if they give you the whole thing, you only want half of it. So you got to think, well, what's half of 6? And if you need to do that and work that out, you can always say 6 divided by 2. That gives me 3. So 3 is equal to my radius, which is what I need. I need R in order to solve for this. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down my 1/3. I'm going to bring down my big B, which notice that if I were to go ahead and complete this base and make it a circle, we know that this base right here is a circle that it sits on, and so it's pi r squared. So we're going to do pi, and then for r, we're going to put our radius, which is 3 squared, And then we have to multiply this. I'm going to put parentheses to our height. And the height is the distance from the bottom of the base all the way to the top, our furthest point on the other side of the object. And it says it's 9 inches, so we're going to put 9. And now we just need to put this in our calculators and solve it. So now if we put this in our calculator, we can go ahead and put this in. I'm going to go ahead and put a parenthesis. I'm going to put 1 divided by 3. And once again, you could go ahead and put parenthesis control divide, and it'll give you a fraction bar. And then I'm going to go ahead and put another parenthesis. I'm going to put in pi. And then I need to put in my r, which is 3. And then square it. Close parenthesis. And then I'm going to put another parenthesis because I want to multiply that to 9. And so this says 1/3 times pi 3 squared times 9. And that's everything in our formula. So I'm going to hit enter. And it gives me 84.8. So I'm going to round it off to that nearest tenth. So it's 84.8 inches cubed. So let's go ahead and document that. So we got 84.8 inches cubed. And the closest answer we have to that, if we look at our answer choices right here, it says which measurement is closest to the volume of the party hat in cubic inches, and that would be A, 84.82 inches cubed. Alright, let's take a look at number 7. 7 says a cylinder and its dimensions are shown in the diagram. Which equation can be used to find V, the volume of the cylinder in cubic inches? So we're looking for V. So remember, we're going to do our formula again. This is a cylinder, so we're going to have V equals big B times H. If we shade in our bases, here's one base. It doesn't show it right here, but we know we have another one down here. And they're in the shape of a circle. So if we look at the top as well, what we can also conclude is that they give us the diameter. So we need to cut that in half because we just want the radius, right? We just want half of that. So if we cut that in half, that's going to be 5 divided by 2. And if you need to put that in your calculator, you can put that in your calculator. Make sure you put a decimal after the 2. That way it'll go ahead and convert it to a decimal. And 5 divided by 2 is going to give us 2.5, which is going to be our r. So now that we know our radius, we know what formula we're going to use, let's go ahead and plug the values in. Our big B, since our base is a circle, we're going to be using pi r squared. And then our h is just going to be our height, which is going to be the distance between our two bases. And so I'm going to go ahead and plug in for this. I got pi times my radius, which is 2.5. I'll go ahead and put square on there. I'm going to go ahead and put that in parentheses. And then I'm going to bring down my h. And what I want you to notice is, notice they didn't give us the h value, right? They just gave us the letter h. So let's just bring that h down. In this one, they're just trying to see if we can set this up properly. So if they give you h, just put h in. Notice they didn't give us any information. They didn't tell us what h was in a statement. They just told us to solve for V, and that's what we're doing. V just stands for volume. So here's our formula right here, and that's as far as we can go. We don't know what the height is. We weren't given the height, and we weren't given a volume, so we can't solve it any further. So now what we got to do is let's match it up to the equation that can be used to find V. So which one looks like what we have? And if you look right here, A wouldn't work because look what they did. They got the h inside of the parentheses so that it's being squared. And remember that 2.5 is being squared, but the h is not. So it's not A. And then we have pi 5h squared. Once again, that h is being squared. We can't have that happen. This one says pi times 2.5 squared times h. And that's what we got here. Pi times 2.5 squared times h. So that is going to be the correct answer. If you're wondering about D, on D it says pi times 5 squared times h. Remember, 5 was the diameter if we go back to the top. And we didn't want the diameter, we just needed the radius, which is half of the diameter. So that's why D wouldn't be correct. So C is your best answer. Now let's go ahead and go on to number 8. Alright, in number 8, it says a cylinder and its dimensions are shown in the diagram. Which measurement is closest to the lateral surface area of the cylinder in square centimeters? Notice we're just looking for lateral surface area, so you should be thinking pH. Remember, pH is lateral surface area. The plus 2b is for when we're looking for total surface area. So we're not going to need the area of the two bases. We're just going to need the perimeter of the base times the height. So if we look at our base, we should notice right away it's a circle, right? Because that's the shape of the base of a cylinder. So I'm going to go and shade those circles in. And we know that for P, right, that is the perimeter of the base. And we're going to multiply that to the height. So when you're thinking perimeter of the base, you should be thinking circumference. And let me focus that in. So when we're looking for circumference, right, which is the perimeter of a circle, just the distance around a circle, we should be thinking the formula 2 pi r. Now in this case, did they give us the radius? And the answer is no, they gave us the diameter. But that's fine, because that's actually going to make it a little bit easier for us. If they gave us the diameter, then that's 2 times the radius. And notice this 2 pi r, that's 2 times pi times the radius. That means we're multiplying 2 also to the radius. And so 2 times the radius is just the diameter. Therefore, we don't need the 2, we don't need the r. We're just going to do 8.4 times pi. Now, if you wanted to, you could still go ahead and divide this out, get your r and plug it in. But I would say that if you know that diameter times pi is the circumference, just as 2 pi r, those are the same things. In other words, for those who might be a little confused here, if you might have forgot, 2 pi r is equal to pi times the diameter. Those are equal statements. So if they give you the diameter, you're just going to multiply it to pi. If they give you the radius, then you got to multiply it times pi and 2. So our perimeter is 8.4 pi. Our height is going to be this distance between the two bases, and it's 10.9. So we're going to put this in parentheses and then put 10.9. And let's go ahead and put that in our calculator, and we'll know what our lateral surface area is. Alright, we're going to go ahead and plug that in. We're going to say parenthesis, and then I'm going to put 8.4 times pi, close parenthesis, and that's my diameter times pi. And then I'm going to multiply that to the height, 10.9, and then I'm going to hit enter. And it gives me 287.6. So I'm going to go ahead and document that. So it was 287.6 centimeters squared, because it's area. And that's my lateral surface area. Now if I come down here, the answer is G, 287.6 centimeters squared. Alright, our next problem, we have a cone and its dimensions are shown in the diagram. And then if we go to the bottom, it says which measurement is closest to the volume of the cone in cubic inches. So once again, remember the cone has a circle as a base. Go ahead and shade it in. And then it wants us to find the volume, so let's underline volume so we make sure we know what we're looking for. And then I want you to think about it. They've given us the height right here. And then when you're looking at this particular measurement, they've given us the diameter. So since we're looking for volume, we want to go ahead and cut that in half, right? Because we just want the radius. And my radius, which is half of the diameter, would be half of 5 5/8. So that number, I would go ahead and use my calculator. I wouldn't try to do that in my head. I would want to do 5. And remember, for that, you're going to put 5 plus 5/8. And you're going to divide that whole thing by 2. And see what you come up with. And that'll tell us our radius. And that way, we'll know what we're going to put in here to solve for volume. Also keep in mind, our volume formula is V is equal to 1/3 big B times H. Because a cone is 1/3 of a cylinder. So with that being said, we have 1/3 times our big B, which is going to be pi r squared. And that's pi. We don't know r yet. So at this point, let's go ahead and go to our calculator and figure out what r is going to be. Alright, So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put my parenthesis, and I'm going to put 5, and then I'm going to put plus, and then I'm going to do 5 over 8, close parenthesis, close parenthesis. Now when I put this in there, in yours you could have put 5 plus 5, and then put control, divide, and put your fraction bar and do 5 over 8, and put a decimal after the 8. And it'll convert it to a decimal. But I'm going to do it this way. It'll also convert it to a decimal for me. And that's easier to deal with. That's going to be my amount that I have right there. That's 5 5/8. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide that by 2. So once I divide that by 2, that is my radius, 2.8125. So let's go ahead and document that. So we got the radius. I'm going to put an arrow right here. The radius is equal to 2.8125. So now I'm going to plug that in over here in my formula. So I have 1/3 times pi times the radius, which is 2.8125. 2.8125. And then it's going to be squared. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply that by the height, which is 7.5. So I know that 1/2 is just 0.5. So I know that the height is equal to 7.5. So I'm just going to keep it a decimal instead of putting in that fraction. But you could put 7 plus 1 over 2 with your fraction bar. But I think it's easier just to convert that to a decimal. If you know 1/2 is 0.5, just do 7.5. And let's see what we come up with. Okay, so I'm going to put all this in. I'm going to go ahead and put my parenthesis and put 1 divided by 3, close parenthesis. And you could put 1 over 3 and put it inside a parenthesis for your 1/3. And then I'm going to go ahead and put pi. I'm going to multiply that times my 2.8125, 2.8125, close parenthesis, and I'm going to square it. And then I'm going to put another parenthesis to multiply it to the height. So that's the area of my base, 1/3 times the area of my base times my height. And that's everything I need to have for volume. It comes out to be 62.126. Now I noticed that their answer choices have it rounded to the hundredths place. So we're going to round to the hundredths place. If you look in a thousandths place, we have a 6. So in other words, if you look right here, you'll see that there's a 6 right here. So because that 6 is greater than 4, we're going to round this 2 right here up. So that'll be 62.13. So I'm going to write that down. 62.13 inches cubed. That is our answer. So the best answer choice on this one is going to be J. Alright, let's go ahead and go to number 10. And number 10, it says, Paul completely covered a square wall using 87.5 feet squared of wallpaper without any overlap. Which measurement is closest to the side lengths of this wall in feet? Okay, so first of all, let's think about it. It says Paula completely covered a square wall. So let's go ahead and draw a square wall. So if it's square, right, all 4 sides have to be equal to one another. And it says that she used a total of 87.5 feet squared. So the area of the square was 87.5 feet squared. And it says that there was no overlap. And it says which measurement is closest to the side length of the wall. So we're trying to find a side length. And remember, on a square, all the side lengths are the same. So whatever we find for this answer, it's going to work for all of the sides. So what we need to do is find what number times itself is going to give us 87.5 feet squared. In other words, this represents the length times the width. So in order to unsquare it, I want you to think about what's the opposite of multiplying something to itself, and it's taking the square root of it. So let's go ahead and take the square root of 87.5, and that will give us our answer. So let's put that in our calculator. Alright, so what we got here, I'm going to go ahead and put my radical sign. And you'll do it just like this one. Even though my keys are in a little bit different places, right? You still got to go ahead and hit Control, and then you'll hit the X squared symbol, and it'll go ahead and give you a radical sign. And then we're going to put in 87.5 and hit Enter. And it gives me 9.35. So let's go ahead and stop there and go back and document it. So that gives me roughly 9.35. And that's going to be feet. Now notice it says which measurement is closest to the side length. So we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for which one is the closest. And the closest thing to 9.35 feet is 9 foot. So C is the best answer in this case. Now that I've done that, we've done 10 problems. You have 9 problems left. I want you to break up in groups, and I want you to work on the other 9 problems on your own. Do your best to get them done and help each other out. And I'll be checking it tomorrow. Alright, one last thing I wanted to mention is that whatever you don't finish in class is homework, and that'll be your homework grade for this week. So make sure you turn it in.